Shawn. Oh, Shawn, you're here.
I'm here. So this funny thing happened where we wanted to leave it suspenseful and be like, is Shawn coming back? But then it turned out we just were on break for so long. And I was always coming back, of course.
Yeah, it's like surprise, surprise. So, yeah, you are returning this season. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Um, but before that, let's do word of the day. Which word of the day? So today's word. This is a word. It's a phrase actually that everyone here should be aware of. However, I might give you some more information that you may have never known before. Today's word is Book of Shadows. Now,
What's that?
it is a book containing religious texts and instructions for magical rituals found within the neo-pagan religion of Wicca. Okay, since it came out, it has been adopted by many pagan practices and paths, not just Wicca, but most witch practitioners will have a Book of Shadows as their thing, their guide, their way to figure out their life and their magic and what they want to do. But initially, it was created by Wicca. It was still dominated by covens. Only one copy of the book existed for an entire coven in its first incarnation. And then it was kept by the high priestess or the high priest. And then they realized, like, this is stupid because I need to use this spell and they have it and it's not even close to me. So, like, why are we doing this? So then they decided, oh yeah, maybe everyone should have their own. So that's kind of funny. Gerald Gardner is the father of Wicca. He's quoted as the father of Wicca. And he first introduced the Book of Shadows to people, that he initiated it into the craft in the 1950s. And he said that this was an ancient part of witchcraft history. However, he did not write about it in his novel about medieval witchcraft. It's like, if this was this big old part of ancient witchcraft history, why didn't you mention it? Why are you just bringing it up now? And then this is a high priestess who was in his coven with him. Her name was Doreen Valiente. She's mentioned in this book too, but she claimed that this was because at the time Gardner had not yet conceived of the idea of the Book of Shadows and only invented it after writing his novel. She said that he found the term Book of Shadows from a 1949 edition of a magazine known as The Occult Observer, and in this edition was an advertisement for Gardner's novel, High Magic's Aid. So he wrote a book about witchcraft, and in this magazine there was other stuff in there, but he saw this ad for this other guy's article called The Book of Shadows, which was written by palmist Mir Bashir, and in the article it was about ancient Sanskrit divination that told you how to foretell things based on the length of a person's shadow. So it's something completely different that this guy just like, oh, I like the name of that, let's make this. So Book of Shadows, there's your history lesson. How fun.
How fun.
You haven't even read that?
Wait, what are you doing with the book?
So he has the confidence to finish the story.
Hear now the words of the witches.
Can you hear the words of the witches? Yeah, the words of the witches.
Welcome to Words of the Witches, the Charmed podcast that will guide you through the lesser-known published lore of the Charmed universe.
In this night and in this hour, we call upon our fanboy power, bringing education and stupefaction to all of you.
Together, we will use our knowledge and reverence abundantly, but also find ourselves sassy and delightful.
Which is why we will truly be charmed.
All right, Spellworders, welcome back to Season 3 of Words of the Witches podcast. I'm your resident Charmed resource, Kevin.
And I'm Shawn, and
Yourself.
I need a new... I know, I just realized I usually say, and I just love comic books, but we're not doing comic books anymore. I am gonna think about it. Get back to you.
And I just love guidebooks, but do I love guidebooks? I don't know yet.
I don't know yet. Maybe.
This is episode...
And I just love the supernatural.
There you go. Supernatural. This is podcast episode 109. We're back on the numbered episodes. So, what's been happening, dude? Well,
oh my glob. Because, I still consider the musical like an episode. So like it's been what 4 weeks or so since the musical. So
Yeah.
much has freaking happened, Kevin. I've gotten 3 certifications for school, 3 cybersecurity certifications.
Very nice.
My little sister got married. My grandpa died like today. So it's been a crazy like 4 weeks.
Yeah, crazy. I'm sorry. That's not so crazy.
I know. I've been
Uh,
a mixed bag of emotions all day.
I know how that
Kind of
goes.
suppressing things at time, and other times it all comes out.
Yeah. So there's been lots of stuff. Life.
Yeah.
But we made that musical, that Charmed musical. So if you have not tuned into that Charmed musical, it's out. There's all kinds of stuff leading up to it about the creation of it. Then we have the episodes, 2 acts, and then we have some behind the scenes chats about it afterwards. So the feedback for the musical has been very nice, very positive.
Yeah. Because it's so good.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's all the narrator.
Stop it.
But if you are also interested, because I didn't really talk about this on those episodes, but you can get merch. I have my Charmed musical pillow
Oh, how
that I bought from the
cool.
Threadless. Whereas of the
Mhm.
witches.threadless.com, all kinds of Charmed merch. And I still want to do some more of our phrases like FMDS.
Fuck me, Daddy Satan.
Yes, I want to get some of that on there still too. But it's interesting. It was crazy though when this musical came out because I was so scared to put it out there when I started like, having the cast in there and having to have other people see it. I was like, this. I was nervous, but it worked out. I also want to apologize to Aaron because in these last 2 behind the scenes episodes, he kept bringing up, "I wish that you were here," and I either like wasn't listening or I completely like glossed over it and I didn't really talk about it, and to the extent that I think we should have because that was a very special song. I knew that I wanted to include something in a tribute to my mother who passed too. And Aaron knew this and he wrote this really beautiful song and I've heard it about 50 times. I don't know how many times, and every time I cry. It really chokes me up. So it's a very important song, and I think maybe I just wasn't ready to like talk about it then. I don't know, but yeah, it's no matter how many times I hear it, it's when they start singing together and all their voices blend and they're doing the rounds. It gets me. So very important. So thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
And I know I mentioned this in our anniversary episode, our 3-year anniversary episode, but Plenaria Price, who owned the Hallowell Manor, passed on Valentine's Day this year as well. So it's crazy. So everyone's asking me how they can get in there, and I'm like, I don't know how to contact anybody anymore.
Yeah. That's
So,
bad.
but yeah, lovely lady, wonderful life. So, all these honors. But season three of the podcast, we are here to talk about guidebooks.
I just
What
love
is a
guidebooks.
guidebook? It's a whole new world, a whole new adventure. We are no longer covering narrative stories. What do I mean when I say guidebook? Yeah. So this includes the publishings that comment and pertain to the show directly. This includes episode guides, compilations, rundowns on lore, behind the scenes info, philosophical writings that analyze Charmed, that kind of thing. So, so this season, those who avoided us because they only care about the show and nothing else have no more excuses because we're going to be talking directly about the show. But they'll still come
Yeah.
up. So, unlike the novels and comics that were part of a longer series or had a similar structure to each other, this is going to be an odd season because every book this season is independent of each other. different writers, different publishers, different countries of origin. So with the exception of like the Book of Three, because there's the part 1 and 2, every book is a solo work, with Charmed being the only common thread. So we can't really rely on a structure as much.
That's fine.
Yeah, we'll make it up as we go. It's fine. I believe there are 7 books we're covering this season. So, and you're probably thinking, only 7 books? That's going to be such a short season. But most of these books are quite long, and we are breaking them up by sections in the book, so like different chapters. That way, so we don't kill ourselves with a 5-hour-long episode. We can just like stick to that section.
Yeah. If you want the long podcast, go listen to Solving Frex as we talk about Deadpool 2 and these last Marvel movies.
Right. But of course, even those, they're only about like 2 hours long anyway, too. So not even bad. If my calculations are correct, we should have about 36 episodes this season, give or take.
I like how you're like doing the Beyonce to tell me this.
I know. If you'd like, you should put a ring on it. One more thing I should mention about this season is that we are doing these books in the order that they were released, timeline-wise. So whichever books were published first will be the order that we do this. Cool? Yeah.
Cool.
We won't be doing the official Charmed magazine this season because that's for another season down the line.
Okay. Fine.
So today, we will be covering the first book on the agenda is The Book of Shadows, the Unofficial Charmed Companion by N.E. Genge, or Nagar E. Genge. This was first published October 10th, 2000. And there was an update in 2001. I did see an alternate cover that had pictures of Shannon, Holly, and Alyssa on there, down here. This cover is interesting because it makes it look like there's like brown leather on there.
Yeah. It's pretty.
I like the
font.
I like the font. Mm-hmm. Little blue sapphire jewel on the cover too, and then there's like a little border with no triquetra, which is interesting. They have these pentagrams on the corners. No triquetra.
Mm-hmm.
You know why there's probably no triquetra? Because of this little blurb. It says, "This book has not been prepared, approved, licensed, endorsed, or in any way authorized by any entity that created or produced Charmed."
Yeah, there you go.
Like, no, I don't know. So the back cover says, "Spellbound, the ultimate guide to the hit program Charmed. This is both a book of spells and a key to the mysteries of the show. The Book of Shadows celebrates the best of Charmed, from its roots in the ancient tradition of Wicca to insider information about the show's stars. N.E. Genge not only provides fascinating background details for the show's Wiccan elements, but also guides readers in performing their own magic. Fans with a witchy bent will learn about the tools of magic and divination and the casting of spells. Recipes and rituals from those that beckon love or bless a new business venture to those that bequeath strength or bestow fortune are all included. The Book of Shadows is a sassy celebration of witches, sisterhood, and magic." Yeah, so with that description, what does that instill in you?
It's telling me that this is a person, N.E. Genge, which is such a weird author name to go by to me. N.E. Genge. It sounds like they are someone who knows witchcraft very well and someone who wants to make sure like we understand, Charmed is kind of based on Wicca, but they want to make sure we know the difference between what's like fact and fiction. So I look to this person as being kind of an expert that's going to kind of like walk me through some different things that hopefully, I don't know, because I'm kind of a witchcraft practitioner. Like I want to be more than I am, but I'm kind of there. I know stuff.
Yeah. Do you have what are your memories of this book?
My memories of this book?
I know you probably have none, but I have memories of
I
this
have
book.
none.
Because that's one of the things I ask, but I'm like, I don't know if you'll have memories of any of these books that we're covering this season.
Nope.
But this was actually, I remember finding this book in 2000 in the bookstore of Barnes & Noble, right outside, like, for the entertainment store area. There's like the TV and movie book section. And I saw this and I was like, Charmed? Quoi? They have Charmed stuff, because by this time I was really into the show, and I just started finding out that I was at Barnes & Noble all the time. Just started getting the novels, and then I was like, what is this book? So it was published in 2000, which means the show was still fairly new. This only covers the first 2 seasons of the show.
Wow.
And I laugh because I looked at reviews of this on Amazon, and they're generally positive, but I have seen some that are disappointed that it only covered the first 2 seasons. Like, this only has the first 2 in it. How horrible. They don't even know. I'm like, did you look at when it was published?
Yeah.
And then they got mad that it wasn't all the spells on the show, and they got mad that it wasn't a Book of Shadows replica. It's like, clearly you were not reading anything that this was about.
Yeah,
like,
you could just open the book and see that that's not what it is.
right. And so many people bought this book, and they're like, this is not what I thought it was. I'm like, how about you look at something before you invest your time and money into it, I guess.
Yeah.
But so with that, if you don't want to learn about witchcraft and how it relates to early Charmed, the episodes of this podcast that we're covering may not be for you either. This is going to be a little bit different. A little bit of an odd place to start this season, but I am a completionist and it must be done. And I have really fun memories. I believe this book is the one that actually really got me into the magic, real witchcraft kick when I was a kid. Got me interested in it. So it was a really great introduction.
That's exciting.
Yes. I'm not covering the entire book right now, just the first section, which is entitled The Power of Three. For me, I love that it mentioned Shannon Doherty's navel.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you probably watch the show for more than to see Shannon Doherty. You probably open this book because you want to know more than seeing her stomach. Oh, her belly button. You're like, don't you want to know about magic? I can teach you about magic. There was this is before the show came out. These like quotes from people. They're very interesting. You want to read these?
Yeah, I was
This
going to
first one.
focus on those too, because I didn't realize, especially since this came out after Buffy, like, I didn't realize how big of a deal, like, this was to people. There's going to be a witch show. Like, it really stirred the pot on both sides of the spectrum, which is so interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this first one is from Margaret Stamp, who was one of many reviewers from notmykids.com. So she, right?
Oh, hysterical.
She had a website devoted to, quote unquote, steering impressionable youth away from the demonic influences lurking in our everyday world. And her quote starts here. I'm going to read it like Margaret Stamp. I am absolutely dismayed to learn that this television network would conspire to sneak devil worship into our homes. Isn't it bad enough that Satanists are moving out of the crack houses and broken homes into decent neighborhoods? I'm already walking with a Keep Our Streets for Christ group 4 nights a week. Do I have to put special contraptions on my TV now too? So they don't just beam themselves right into my living room?
It's crazy. It's so, I mean, you can see all these nutso Republicans already still in this past are just, oh my gosh.
You know, I have to give it to them though. They are so creative, like thinking that, like, because Hocus Pocus 2 recently, even now, today,
Yes.
they were like, they're gonna put spells on you from the TV and they're gonna enchant you.
Right.
And I'm like, where'd you come up with this stuff?
And they were still saying this in 1999 or 1998 before the show came out. Like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. So that is hilarious to me. And then you hear an interesting one, equally fervent position on the opposite side. And it says, this is from a witch practitioner or a witch person. It's not like it's hard enough being a Wiccan to start with. People wondering if you're going to hex them or steal their babies or whatever. Like this, not my kids, girl. Now this show will have people wondering how many of us are out there after all. Figuring that if there's enough of us to make an audience in the first place, there's probably too many of us. It's going to stir up a lot of stuff, and it probably won't know anything about real Wicca anyway. So, and that's interesting. You know, it's kind of much like an outing. Like they're outing us. Now we're going to be a target. You know, and they're afraid of that.
Yeah. And then like I kind of see this is like, I guess she goes by Teen Witch. I kind of get her point, like, but I don't, because I get what she's saying. Like, if you put Wiccan in a movie or on TV, you're gonna have to do something to spice it up, because it's actually really boring to watch, because it's a very personal journey. It's a lot of like
Mm-hmm.
personal spells that aren't showy or flashy. You know, you don't go out and shoot lightning bolts at someone if you're Wiccan, which would be amazing.
Have, like, little sparkle glitter on all your spells. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I think the only way you could do like a realistic witch show and keep it interesting is if it was like the Real House Witches of Orange County or something, where it's like a drama show, you
Right.
know, that they do witchcraft on. So it's funny that like she's saying it's not going to be real Wicca anyway, but then when the show came out and when the craft came out around the same time, they were praised for their portrayal of Wicca, even though it was, you know, Hollywood Wicca.
Yeah, I mean, this whole page here, it's so crazy to see the fear of like the fundamentalist Christians as well as practicing pagans, and how the impact of the show would affect their livelihood. They both had these
Mhm.
crazy fears. And it's interesting too because like once the show aired, Holly talked about this, that they were getting criticized for not being accurate enough in the witchcraft, but then also being too accurate. That they're worried that they're gonna do actual magic, and that was the same thing that was in the craft. They talked about that. They had a witch consultant there, and they don't want to be doing the spell for too long, and yeah,
Wow.
it's intense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They talked about how like an image could be seen in two different ways, or like an image could be misinterpreted, or have multiple meanings. So like there's this picture here of like this 5-pointed star, like this pentagram star, but it's upside down, inverted. And people always think that's like the devil and evil. But then she says the closer contemplation reveals the Eastern Star with the symbols of 5 brave women. And I actually looked into what this Eastern Star was because I was curious. Do you want to hear about it?
I do, especially real quick. My very first job was working for the Order of the Eastern Star, and I never fully understood what that meant. It was at an old folks'
Really?
home. Yeah. So I'd love
Oh
to
my
hear this.
gosh. First, okay, well, tell me your story. Tell me that first.
Well, that it was called Order of the Eastern Star. It was connected with the Masons, and it was an old folks' home. Like I served food from the kitchen to all the old ladies and like the 5 men that were there.
Oh, yeah.
And I've never really known what like the Eastern Star is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, how cool. Because I remember you telling me you worked at the nursing home, but I didn't really. That's full circle. This is like,
Yep.
wow. And that's when you met that lady who's like, "Oh, I don't care if you're gay."
Oh yeah, they were like they really opened my eyes to like the elderly and how much they don't give a shit. Like you should never look at an old person and think that you know them. You know what I mean? You can't just say like, "Oh,
Right.
they're old. They must be like Republican and hate gay people and da 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 da," because a lot of them are just the opposite. They don't give. I have a friend who's
Right.
transgender and was a woman for a part of their life, and they moved into an old folks home, and they said the best part about living there is all the old people would forget that they were transgender, so they had to keep telling them on a daily basis like, "Oh, I'm transgender." And she was like, they would get so excited and be like, "Oh, let's have lunch together." So she's like, it was exciting every day.
How fun. Yeah, it's great.
Mhm.
So let's talk about what that means. So the Order of the Eastern Star is a Masonic appendant body open to both men and women. It was established in 1850 by Rob Morris, who was a Freemason. The order is based on some teachings from the Bible and is open to people of all religious beliefs. So you don't have to necessarily be of their, I don't know, what the word it is. The word I'm
You don't
thinking
have
of.
to be like stereotypical like Christian to join, which is
Yeah,
nice.
of their you don't have to be of their practice.
Mhm.
The emblem of the order is a 5-pointed star with the white ray of the star. So I guess there's different colors too. This book
Mhm.
doesn't show the colors, but they are different colors. And what's interesting is each of these things have like a letter attributed to it, and it says fatal.
Oh.
Fatal. I'm like, oh. um, the meaning of the letters fatal surrounding the center pentagon in the emblem is only revealed to members of the order, but are believed to stand for faith, adoration, trust, altruism, and loyalty, which are all nice things. But why?
Yeah,
Why does it have to spell fatal?
I know.
That makes me uncertain.
Well, maybe it's supposed to say like Lataf, but we're just reading it wrong.
Maybe. And each of these 5 things represent different biblical figures, biblical women. Ada from the Book of Judges, and she is blue with a sword and a veil. She represents obedience. Ruth is religious principles. Esther is white, and she has a crown and a scepter. It represents the virtue of loyalty. Martha, sister of Mary and Lazarus, and she represents the virtue of endurance in trial. And then Electa represents the virtue of endurance of persecution.
I love that they celebrate woman as their virtues because that's very different from like Christianity, where like woman is the origin of all sin. Like woman doesn't do anything right. Fuck all the women, figuratively and literally. So it's nice that we're celebrating women here.
Yeah, and I believe things changed because before women were always allowed, but they had to be um, invited or connected by a man in the practice in the belief system. But then they decided it doesn't matter, which is good
Yeah.
because if they're all about this womanhood. Oh, they talk about the show now. Wait, these witches have special powers. Ooh, so they're like, well, practicing witches will tell you that witches aren't born with supernatural powers. That's incorrect. They actually aren't born at all.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. And they say that by calling the premiere "Something Wicked This Way Comes," they tell you what they are going for, and they establish a overview of Wiccan beliefs in the episode itself. Within the first 20 minutes, it establishes the basic beliefs that many Wiccans maintain an altar space. The Wiccan holidays are Sabbats, and Athame is a magical implement for directing energy. And they talk about the warlocks not being male but evil. So like all these things that actual witchers believe were made evident in this first episode. So they were trying. Oh, we have a rhyme time, Shawn.
We do.
Should we try a spell?
Why not? Let's try a spell.
In the wind, I sing this rhyme. Bring death before me, before my time.
You've really got to lay off the rhyming, Brew. Wonderful. Witty, but wordy.
I did the rhyme. I will do the time. Good night.
So it's been found, at least by the author, that the power of 3 is very similar with the Witch's Creed. So the power of 3 spell from Charmed goes, "Hear now the words of the witches, the secrets we hid in the night. The oldest of gods are invoked here. The great work of magic is sought. In this night and in this hour I call upon the ancient power. Bring your powers to we sisters 3. We want the power. Give us the power." And now if we compare that to the Witch's Creed, it's, "Hear now the words of the witches, the secrets we hid in the night, when dark was our destiny's pathway, that now we bring forth into the light. This world has no right then to know it, and world of beyond will tell not. The oldest of gods is invoked there, the great work of magic is wrought. And do what you will be the challenge, so be it in love that harms none. For this is the only commandment, by magic of old be it done." So very, even like the first couple of lines are like cut and paste.
Yeah. So you can definitely tell that they were really looking into some of this stuff before they wrote this show.
Yeah, and I think
And which
one thing that people need to know and understand is like with most magic, I'm going to say most, not all, but it is all about, love and acceptance because we see this line, so be it in love that harms none. We're being told love and do magic without harming other people, which is very beautiful.
hmm and note that Witch's Creed was written by Doreen Valiente, which is the one who called out that guy who's like just made up the Book of Shadows.
Oh,
She was in his coven. So funny.
I think what people like Teen Witch need to focus on more, especially because Teen Witch wrote that before the show is even on,
Right.
about how like it's going to bring out the Wiccans and make targets of them. But if we don't have things like Charmed that show everyday women as witches, there's always going to be this idea that witches are evil, witches are green,
hmm
witches want to steal your slippers. You know what I mean? So, if anything, even though the magic isn't always accurate to real life Wiccan, at least we're seeing real people doing witchy things.
The thing is, having a representation allows you to have conversations about it. Allows you to enlighten people. Makes people interested in you in a way that makes could make your life better. It doesn't always put
Hmm.
a target on you. It makes people want to understand you and willing to listen. So
Yeah. And one thing that I forgot her name already is Margaret, our favorite, Margaret Stamp. Like one thing she says that really made me laugh is like the Satanists are moving out of their crack houses and broken homes.
I know.
Like I'm a Satanist. I don't come from a broken home. I love my family. I've explained to my mom on many an occasion like why I'm a Satanist and what I love about it because it's loving yourself and loving other people. And I've never done crack. Like it's not something I wish to do. I am a normal person and I have these beliefs. So by being
Yeah,
visual with that, we can show the Margaret Stamps out there. No, I consider myself a better person than you because at least I love other people and want to allow them to have their beliefs.
I would love to meet her. And
Yeah.
oh god, punch her in the face. That's fine. No, but I love her. I love her.
I would just love to like turn on the TV with her and be like, "Oh my god, do you see that? The
I
demon's
know.
coming out of the TV. Do you see the demon right now? It's coming towards you.
It's Samara. Is it the demon coming out?
It's the
Uh,
demon."
Fuck me, Daddy Satan. Let's go. Oh. It's like, yeah, bring on the hey demon.
Do you think if Margaret Stamp listened to our show, she would just like straight up faint? Like, oh my god.
Maybe. It's like blasphemy. This is worse than the season 6 finale of Charmed.
I mean, I don't watch it, but if I did, this is worse.
And then there's a little anecdote here about the Triskela. And they say that this is what's on the Book of Shadows, and it's about all these represents mating mother and crone, things like that, and the Celtic daughters can be Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. So it's this whole Trinity symbol. But this one, the way they show was a bunch of interlocking triquetras. So I always thought that was the Triskela, whereas the one singular one is a triquetra.
Yeah.
So,
And I think everybody knows by now I came from Brunch with the Hollowells before I had a falling out, but we did do an episode, my idea, of course, because I had all the best ideas. We did an episode on, I asked the question, why is it always like three? You know what I mean? It's always three
right.
witches. It's always like three and like the
I
Powerpuff
remember.
Girls even. It always comes in three. And we came across two things that we think originated it. Number one, the three witches in Shakespeare, which even dates back to, the Greek Gorgons. But also, Rob came across the idea of like, this is going to sound weird, but the three holes, your two eyes in your mouth.
Oh
Like
yeah.
when you're a baby, the first thing you see is like those three holes. So it may even go back even farther.
Interesting. And then I just had some other things that I thought was interesting. This is like the first 9 pages, guys. This is crazy how much she packed into
Yeah.
these first 9 pages. There's a note here. I said that Wicca is derived from Wicke, which is in Old Saxon, roughly meant magic worker. I thought that was interesting. Um, we point out that witchcraft and Wicca are not synonymous. They are not the same thing. You can be a witch without being Wiccan. You could be any other kind of denomination. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Denomination.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah. So that's something to be important to note going forward. Um, I thought the juxtaposition between witchcraft and Christianity was a weird, interesting thing that she noted, because of the religion that was in Charmed. And like, are these girls Christian? Are they actual witches? Are they having to convert? You know?
Yeah, because you can be both. Like witches don't have a set creed. Like a lot of people, and it even kind of you said it too, and it says it here. There's a public perception that all Wiccans are witches, and that all witches follow the same beliefs. And then I love this dramatic wrong.
Right.
But yeah, like especially Catholicism has a lot of witchcraft and witchcraft type practices, and it may not even be Wicca. Like we see a lot of Santeria and stuff like that in the Catholic Church, because a lot of those beliefs actually came from Jamaica, Cuba, countries like that into Mexico, and then mixed with the very Catholic kind of culture down in Mexico. So that's a really good point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe, in one of our essay books, there's a whole discussion about the religion in Charmed, and it's very fascinating to think about.
Mm-hmm.
This book points out. I love how she talks about the familiars and how that's a typical witch accessory, familiars, um, and so like she likes that Charmed already included that, so that bringing up all these things that Charmed had that was actual legitimate stuff. Um, oh yeah, and then they do the whole ancient one of the earth so deep, the whole Serena Frederick spell in the beginning of Charmed is listed here, and that it was a protection spell with the phrasing "the oldest of gods," that it implies a religious basis. And then we talk about how Piper is in the church and she's always afraid of like being a witch, and is she allowed in the church, and is she going to get struck by lightning? There's that thing. So I know, and then they bring up when bad warlocks go good with the Roe Coven and how becoming a priest is going to save him. So, and I gotta say, when I was younger, I didn't like that because, well, I didn't mind the part with Piper. That made sense, but the whole how like just becoming a priest is going to save him, and why do they have to look ugly? Why are the demons ugly? I don't. I was a little perturbed by that, but
Mm-hmm.
that's something we can talk about when we get into that stuff.
Okay.
Oh, and the book does point out that when they talk about witch in the context of this book, that they will only refer to the empowerment of the individual. A witch means someone who is trying to empower themselves without regard to any religious connotation. So there's not going to be any religious aspect to the term witch in this book, which is something
Okay.
to be aware of.
Mhm.
All right, and that will take us to the end of this 9-page section of The Power of Three.
Nice.
What are you thinking so far? What are your thoughts so far?
I think it's good. I definitely trust that the author is an expert. I like some of the comparisons that are brought up. I feel like they're doing a good job of not attacking anyone. Like Charmed, I feel like they have a healthy respect for what they did for witchcraft. They just want us to understand, what real witchcraft is. And I like that they're not really attacking religion even. Like everybody's welcome at this
Right.
party.
Right. We're all here. We all have different things, but we're gonna focus on this part of the show and what actual magic is. And anybody can do magic. Anybody can
Mhm.
cook.
Yep.
Like Gusto. uh, so yeah, I do right off the bat. I do think that we have. It's a clear idea of what this book is about. And we have a really great mix of magic and Charmed references already. So you can see that there's a relationship between those two, and that this will deliver on both counts, which I like.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you have any tip for future white letter for this small introduction?
Oh, we're really just messengers? Guides? Think of us as guardian angels for good witches.
Tips for future white letters.
I was out being a force of good in the universe.
I already said mine in the beginning.
I kind of said mine too, but I would just say, don't be afraid. Don't judge something before it's out. Don't be afraid of what it could do to you. Be proud of who you are. Stand up for who you are. I'm someone who's always been very open about, I'm a Satanist. I used to be polyamorous. I've been very open with my life on the podcast, with family and friends. So I do that because I want certain things to be talked about. I want people to see that even though some of these things have a negative connotation, like there's good people behind it. Like nothing's 100% good or evil. There's different shades and flavors of everything. So I want people to see that.
Nice. See? Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And mine is just, I said, maybe read the back cover of something. Do some research before you invest time and money into it, because that will save you a lot of heartache.
Yep.
And then you can judge things more fairly. Ta-da.
Ta-da.
So with that, we will see you next week for section 2 of this book. My goal is to have actual witch practitioners while we cover this book, because it is going to be dealing a lot with actual magic practices. So that'll be good. But yeah, until then, where can we find you, Shawn?
You can find me on Shawn Porrett. That's ShawnPorrett on Instagram. Mostly I'm on there. Also TikTok. That'll link you over to Solving for X, our videos, our podcast on X-Men, and my book, Witch's Brew, on Amazon.
Yay! And you can find me on my personal Instagram, KJEEZY87, and this podcast at Words of the Witches on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Words of Witches on Twitter. I refuse to call it X, it's still Twitter to me. And yeah, email wordsofwitchespod@gmail.com with questions or concerns, and we will see you soon, Spellworders. Thanks for listening. Your destiny still awaits. La
Lo Eshabalante.